funny. I guess it's gonna keep us on. Oh my God, I had a false start here. Well, I hope y'all didn't hear what I was just telling Pastor Chris before we said we live. How y'all doing today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. The fruits of the I'm sorry for it. So let's keep it real. I'm telling you, I'm having some stomach problems. I'm hoping everybody is doing good today. Welcome across social media platforms, YouTubers, Instagrammers. Welcome to the show, you guys. Listen, y'all already know we're going to be talking about mental health. We got what, 2 more weekends of discussing mental health, and from a Christian perspective. As y'all know, my name is Chantel Duke Robinson. Call me Chantel, and this is the family edition of Let's Keep It Real, which always includes a special guest, Pastor Christopher Robinson, who some of you may know is my husband. And so he will be with us anytime we're hosting the family edition to always give us spiritual insight, right, on some of the topics that we decide that we're going to cover when he comes on. So again, welcome to the show. We like to start the show off. For those who wanting to know where we're from, we're from Dayton, Ohio. Um, the show this month, mental health. We've had some good ones. We've had some good ones, and we've had some good feedback from some of the viewers. Some we know, right, and about mental health and how the church looks at, how we look at it from Christian standpoints. We're not mental health counselors. We don't have a license in counseling, mental health. We are ordained pastors in our community, and so we deal with a lot of this stuff and just understanding and knowing and doing our research about the behaviors. And it's not only affecting our congregation, well, the people that know us in ministry. Uh, some of these things are not only affecting them, but they affect you know um, uh, individuals in our family, in our household, me, you know. And so we thought it would be a good discussion to have to kind of keep it real concerning some of the issues that we've been plagued with for our whole lives. Finally, though, it's time to start talking about this thing, so as a nation we can get healed and at least understand why we behave in the way that we do, or why we cannot seem to just get it together, right, even as Christians. No matter how much we go to the altar, no matter how much we pray, there is some things that still have to take place in order for us to get what we like to call in the church delivered, to get free, right? I come to know that some of these things is not just it's just not that easy. And the medical science have caused some of the issues that pastors deal with and face every day are mental health illnesses. We call them spirits. And so we thought, let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about why the church is not able to get people free, why they're not able to get them delivered from certain, mental health illnesses. And let's hear what the professionals have to say about it. And then we'll kind of give a little feedback on it. So before we get started, y'all know we like to educate you on what the doctors are saying, what the professionals are saying, because again, we are not mental health counselors. I am a counselor in Ohio, but it's not mental health. And so I can't speak from a professional standpoint, but I can as an ordained minister. I am ordained, and my husband and I, we are ministers. So from again, we'll be talking a little bit from the church's perspective on some of these topics. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the video. We're going to listen. This one is called, I'm going to put it up here. Let me put it on the screen. And this is for the ones that want to go and look on YouTube. We get a lot of our stuff from YouTube. So for the ones that want to go on YouTube and kind of follow up with this um, presenter, I'm going to put it up. There it is up there. And you can just type that in YouTube and get more information from this presenter. Um, Here we go. Let me find. I thought I had something else on there for her. Well, I guess that's it. So we're going to go ahead and play her video. And after the video plays, we'll give our feedback. So just give me a second here to get it shared. We'll still be viewing with you. So check this out, a little education on. So we're going to be talking about PTSD a little bit, but then more so about CPTSD. And we're talking about these things because the discussion tonight is going to be on childhood traumas that are affecting us today, or have at some point in our lives. So let's hear what she has to say. Let's get to it.
This, but I want to make sure you hear it all the way, like really hear it. The abuse and neglect that happened to you when you were a kid was not your fault. And it's easy to know that, but not to believe it. And I have some information here for you that I think will help you let that truth in. It's about the signs of PTSD. And if you're not sure you have it, I can tell you what it looks like. I think on some level, this might come as a relief for you, because if you've got even some of the 12 signs of complex PTSD that I'm going to talk about in this video, it means you've got symptoms that follow a known pattern and that are a normal response of a normal person to abnormal conditions during childhood. Now, there are symptoms that a lot of people don't realize are connected with early trauma, and you might know some of them, but a lot of the signs I'm going to go over in this video just might surprise you, and they might explain a lot about why you struggle. As I list these, you can write them down if you want, but to keep it simple, I can send you a self-assessment quiz where you can review the signs I'm about to describe to you, and I'll tell you how to get a hold of that at the end of the video. But first, I'll just tell you what they are. All right, number one, do you struggle with attention, memory, or focus? And yes, these are symptoms that affect a lot of people, but they're also common adult symptoms of complex PTSD. And by the way, complex PTSD is the kind that comes from chronic exposure to intense stress over time. And this could happen at any age, but most cases begin in childhood. Things like violence in the home, abandonment, growing up with an addicted or mentally ill parent, or a parent who's died or is in prison, or who just left and never came back. You'll hear me talk about childhood PTSD, which is just a common term for complex PTSD that starts in childhood. Now, when these traumas and neglect start happening in childhood, you'll often see these problems with learning and focus and sitting still, not just in kids, but in adults. And if this is you, you probably had a lot of shame dumped on you about not paying attention in school, as if that were a choice you made. You just didn't want to. And I wouldn't be surprised if you carried that shame into adulthood and got into a lot of shame now about struggling with these very same learning and focus problems. And I just want to point out to you that when you got through trauma as a kid, it not only affects you emotionally, it can cause brain changes. Learning and memory and focus problems are normal when a person has gone through trauma. So I'll explain why in a moment. Okay, number two, sign of CPTSD. Do you tend to space out or feel physically numb when you try to make big decisions or talk about your feelings? This is a sign of what's called dysregulation. There is a distinct thing called emotional dysregulation, which we'll get to, but there's also brain and nervous system dysregulation, and it can develop in response to trauma, possibly as an injury to normal functioning, an injury, by the way, that can be healed. And possibly it develops as a protective mechanism to guard a kid's developing brain from the potential harm of serious trauma. A child learns to just, shut down and close off awareness of something too awful to face. And this is a brilliant survival strategy for a kid. It's good that you did it, but it's totally a problem when it lasts into adulthood, as you know. When you're in a crisis or needing to make an important decision, the last thing you need is to lose your power of reasoning. But that's exactly what can happen when we're dysregulated. And researchers can see this in MRIs and brain scans. When you're stressed, brain waves and vital signs go out of their normal synchronous pattern and they get out of sync, they get discordant. It's sort of a brainwave equivalent of a dog walking on a piano. the keys are clanging and no longer does it sound like music. That's kind of what it feels like to be dysregulated, right? Numb, discombobulated, flustered, irritated. Do you have that sometimes when something triggers you? Okay. Along similar lines, here's the third sign. Do you have trouble regulating intense emotions, having outbursts of sadness or anger when it doesn't seem appropriate? This is what it feels like to be emotionally dysregulated. And again, CPTSD isn't the only reason people get emotionally dysregulated, but it's very, very common. Now, with emotional dysregulation, you're going along and something triggers you. Usually it's something along the lines of criticism, rejection, being judged, left out, pressured to hurry, or in some way stressed. And for people who were traumatized as kids, when they're stressed as adults, there's a very common response in the right front cortex where emotions are activated. And instead of the left front cortex being activated alongside it, this is where reasoning is supposed to kick in and help mitigate that emotional reaction, that left side is suppressed under stress. So reasoning goes down and emotions go up, and you get an overreaction. It can happen with anger. It can happen with excitement. It can happen with intense experiences like falling in love. The emotions are going up and unchecked, and it can be hard to bring them back down. That's a childhood PTSD thing. And sometimes, after a big upset, it's hard to feel anything. So emotions spike, and then they can flatline. And you feel like the world's coming to an end, and then you feel nothing. And of course, for the people who love you, this can feel totally unreasonable and crazy making and lead to arguments. So that leads me to the fourth sign. Do you have more than your share of conflict with family, friends, co-workers, partner? This is how emotional dysregulation plays out. Aggravating ordinary conflicts. And of course, when you grew up without proper role models for guidance, not loved properly, not parented properly, either left to fend for yourself or viciously punished for mistakes, ordinary conflicts can get blown way out of proportion. And it's a big reason why relationships with traumatized people so often get damaged and fall apart. It makes for a very painful way of life, full of loss and hurt. And many of us end up afraid to get involved with people at all. We're so afraid we're going to screw it up. And that leads into the fifth sign that you might have CPTSD, that vulnerability around people. And you can ask yourself, do you find yourself avoiding social engagements because being around people is just too triggering? They are, aren't they? So maybe you
Thinking to start cutting carbs. I need to drop my belly fat.
If you want to drop this,
start eating more of these.
consciously avoid making friends or joining groups or dating, or maybe you do these things but you hold yourself at arm's length. And either way, this is why so many people with CPTSD feel alone and isolated, even when they're with people, even when people are trying to help them or love them. And why a lot of traumatized people give up on socializing and opt to live in isolation as the only way to get peace. Now this happens, but it's not the only way to deal with being triggered. In my courses, I teach people how to strengthen their ability to calm triggers around people and allow their lives to heal and grow. If that's something you feel like you need, I always put the links to those down below in the description section. You can check them out when we're done if you're interested. But yes, the stress around connection to people, either getting closer or the fear of breaking up, splitting up with them, can be so menacing for people with CPTSD that you can go to the completely opposite direction from avoidance. And this is the sixth sign that you might be affected. And you can ask yourself, does the fear of abandonment or of being alone cause you to stay in negative relationships? Oh my gosh. This is such a huge way that so many of us have thrown away years of our lives, staying way past when we wanted to leave, but the thought of leaving was unbearable. The depression and panic that tend to rise up around endings is so harsh, we'll do practically anything to avoid it. And this is complicated by the fact that we so often choose impossible people to be our friends and partners. And this is the seventh sign. Do you find yourself attracted to unavailable or destructive or abusive people. This is not happening because you're a bad person, but because your ability to discern who is an appropriate and trustworthy person is diminished by dysregulation. Getting close to people causes stress. Stress causes dysregulation. And dysregulation causes that poor judgment that then goes on to attach you to people who don't care about you or who can't love you. And this is how trauma so easily gets passed through the generations. You might be intensely hard on yourself when you look back and you see the choices that you've made. But it's a stretch to say even that this was a choice, because CPTSD can trigger such unconsciousness and dysregulated thinking that it's very normal to not realize anything's wrong until well into a relationship. Now remember, you can learn to heal this. You can learn workarounds to slow that process down and instead develop healthy boundaries. We normally have trouble setting boundaries and saying no, but we can learn to heal this. So the 8th sign, have you suffered with depression, anxiety, or other mental health problems? This is well known to be associated with trauma, and it's connected to the 9th sign. Do you smoke cigarettes or use food or alcohol or drugs in an addictive way? Because in the short term, these are regulating and they help soothe that intense emotional dysregulation for a short time, even though they lead eventually to more dysregulation, sometimes after just a few minutes. The 10th sign is, are you overweight or do you struggle with overeating? Early trauma can alter your metabolism and the hormones that govern appetite and craving, which could explain a lot about why so many of us have trouble around certain foods or with stopping eating even when we've had enough. So along similar lines, the 11th sign that you might have CPTSD is, do you have unexplained health problems that seem to have no clear cause? I teach you more about this in my course, Healing Childhood PTSD, but early trauma is closely correlated with a higher incidence of everything from migraines and immune problems to diabetes, heart disease, cancer. If your physical health is affected today because of your trauma reactions, that's just one more reason to take your healing seriously and to take smart, self-loving action. Now, the signs I've listed so far are all about hard things, and some of them may have helped you feel motivated to start learning about CPTSD and how you can start healing your symptoms. The biggest reason I see among my students for wanting to heal, and this was also what motivated me to heal so many years ago, was this, the 12th sign. And that's, do you feel that you are unexplainably separate from other people and groups? And that's just it. We feel separate, disconnected. We feel alone. And I just want to give you hope and let you know that there's a reason you feel this way. It's normal for people who were abused and neglected as kids, and it's not your fault. And while CPTSD is not technically curable, you can learn to heal the symptoms. Now, I promised you, you wouldn't have to take notes on all this because it's all written down in a self-assessment quiz that I've linked right down in the description section on the free tools page of my website. Free tools, that page is always linked really near the top of the description section below. I put several resources down there that I thought you might find helpful. And I also lined up a video for you about the core central symptom that drives almost all other CPTSD symptoms, and it's dysregulation. You can watch my most comprehensive video about that right here, and I will see you very soon.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm hoping that you all enjoyed that. I really did. It was very, very informative and explained a lot of what could be going on with you if you're experiencing any of those common symptoms. She named, I think it was 10 of them. You might want to seek mental health services, schedule an appointment to speak to someone to go over some of the things you've been experiencing. So, and I'll leave that up on the screen for just a little bit. So if you need to write something down, write it down. Pastor, you want to comment on any of the things right off that she said? I think that was, when she spoke about, let me see, I took some notes. I saw you did too. One of the things was that stood out for me is the fact of you lose the power of your reasoning. Let me see. Let me look. Let me get my glasses on, y'all. Memory and focus. She says violence in the home is some of the reasons why you may experience loss with memory or focus. You're not able to focus. Um, in school age, you might be all over the place in school. You can't focus. You can't sit still, and it could be a result of experiencing violence in the school. So if you are a home, you're living in a home, then the parents are always arguing and fighting. You and the children are watching these things occur. It can affect them as they grow them in school. So you don't know why they're acting up, why they can't sit still, why they're not focused in class. It could be because they experienced trauma based on what she shared with us, and because of the trauma that they are experiencing in the home by watching or hearing all of the violence that's going on in school, losing power of their reasoning, stress. If they're stressed, and they can be stressed for no reason, it could just be because they're so used to being stressed. Stress can something can trigger them, and they can be stressed. And as a result of them being stressed, it can affect their brain waves. I heard her say, like their brain waves can be off, and it can cause them to have outbursts and things like that. Cause them to be angry, which is a part of what she call it, emotional dysfunctioning dysregulation, and it's triggered by things such as people judging you, criticizing you, maybe in school, if they're coming up in school, bullying. And as adults in the relationship, you might be criticized, bullied, or picked on by, or messed with by people in the home. Did you write some stuff down? Did you catch some of those things?
And they said, then she said, the brain changes because of tension traumas.
Yeah.
Dysregulation, which causes a person to shut down their brain from outer reality. They don't want to be involved in it because of constant negativity and being involved with negativity or traumas that happen in their life. They shut down their brain from reality to do other things. And it causes brain changes, brain waves, emotional changes, regulation of intensive motives, criticized, they feel criticized, left out, stressed out, suppressed.
They isolate. She said they might isolate from people. They might appear to be. I don't know if she used the word loner, but that's what I got out of what she said. Like they might just separate from people. Don't just stay by themselves. Don't make friends, maybe, because they're. She didn't say some of those things. I just added those in because I was just really thinking about the traumas. I didn't see trauma in my house. I experienced trauma, but I didn't actually see violence and stuff. But my kids did. They saw me always fighting, fighting with the men, and so yeah, they seen it, and I think it affected them as they grew up. They fighting. They fight. My boys is fighting the women, and my daughter, she's a fighter, and so you know it's crazy how just listening to all of that and some just I'm always thinking about my kids and how my life when I was raising them, how you know the decisions I made could have affected the decisions that they make today. And I always um I always take um responsibility for some of the things that they, even though they're adults now and they make their own decisions, still I believe as parents our behaviors can shape theirs. And until they realize that they don't have to respond the way they've been taught or molded unknowingly, until they realize that they can it, so many different things can go wrong in their life. And I think if it had not been for me going to church and trying to change my life, I would probably still be coming to their rescue when it's a whole lot of drama going on. Even to this day, they'll call me when there's some drama. They don't even hardly look at me like Bob was a pastor. They still thinking but if you bother her kids, there's an issue. They still result back to that to the old mama, because of where they are in their lives. And I don't know, I guess maybe all children always going to call their mom and dad when they feel like they need some backup, or just want to be heard. But a lot of this stuff that I wrote down, I was just thinking like, dang. She talked about how some of that stuff can lead to depression and anxiety. I think that was one of the 10th, that was the last thing she's, no, the 10th, one of the presidents, it was the eighth thing, the eighth sign was, if you find yourself being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, it could be a result of, CPTSD. You may be struggling in that. Something's triggering.
Then she said she was talking about also about CBTSD with children. Some experience feeling left out, stressed out, suppressed. Their reasoning go down, but their emotion go up, and then they're flatline. So reason is left out, goes down, their emotions in control of their judgment call or their decision making, then they're flatline.
And that flatline, that's probably when they shut down, they isolate. They go in their rooms, and they don't, as children, teenagers, they don't go in there, they don't want to be bothered, or
which also causes conflict, ordinary conflict, which causes relationships to be damaged due to the CTSD.
Because they're always fighting and carrying on, arguing, and
they're vulnerable. And due to their vulnerability, they do not date, they do not seek friendship. Once they separated from friends, then they separate themselves from friends, society, and people to be in their own world. I mean, that's what we see.
They might be overweight. I heard her say they might be overweight.
Eating problem.
Right.
Overweight problem.
Eating.
Some
even when they're full or had enough.
Yep. Some through this mental health, CBTSD, they eat themselves to death, or eat themselves to gain weight, eat themselves, and they get overweight.
They eat themselves.
They eat, to calm their stress down, whatever they do with the eating of the food, they end up being overweight, end up catching diabetes and all that stuff.
Right.
And due to this thing.
Yeah, and they said it's triggers, whatever triggers them can cause the stress. And then the stress is what actually causes the emotional dysregulation.
Yeah, caused by stress. Yeah.
Yeah, it's stress. So it's stress that kind of triggers, whatever triggers them to be stressed, that leads to the emotional dysregulation, meaning, I think she said something about on the right side of the brain is where your thoughts and stuff are I wrote it down. She said something about the right side of the brain. And let me see. I wrote it down, y'all. She said the right side of the right front in adults, the left side doesn't kick in. So in the right, where all this is going, the side of your the frontal lobe, all this is going on. She said the left side of your brain is supposed to kick in and help you regulate your emotions when your emotions are going high. It's supposed to, the left side is supposed to kick in, but it doesn't. If that left side is flat, then you're not going to get that. That brain wave is not going to be, I guess, balanced out, so you can bring it down. And as a result, it's it overreacts, because there's nothing on the left side regulating those brain waves to bring that emotion back down. And so you have the outburst, and the emotion is just constantly high, and without that left side regulating, or stimulating or whatever to cause it to come down. And so in a lot of times that can cause a lot of conflict, right? And it's called conflict emotional dysregulation. We see that in our kids today. I just had an incident, y'all. I'm just going to be real, just be transparent. I had an incident with a family member, and the emotions just went to the Richter scale. It just finally, after all these years, it just hit its highest peak, and to the point where it was, I'm going to get all of this frustration, anger, and I'm gonna get it all out. I'm gonna yell. I don't care who hears who, what happens. It's not in this house, but in another home that's dear to me. And it was just, oh my God, I've never seen this person reach this peak of frustration and sadness. It was just so much sadness. It was like a little kid that was crying out and just finally was able to express, what was going on inside, what had been held inside. And I said, oh my God, prior to that happening, me getting a phone call and saying, hey, this is the situation, and me knowing, because I had talked to that person earlier, that there was a mental breakdown in process, and trying to, help them relieve some of the emotional drama that was going on. I wasn't able to do that before we ended the call. But then 2 hours later, I got a call, like boom, it hit its peak. It was just heartbreaking. But prior to getting that phone call, I was telling Chris, I think it was the day before, if not later, earlier that day, that it's a lot of people who are going up and have experienced childhood traumas, and they're trying, at some point in their life, they want to get their lick back. They want to get their lick back, meaning maybe they were a child and they saw their mom like fighting. Like my kids saw me fighting. I fought, And as children, you're told, to stay in a child's place. You don't get involved in your parents' disagreements and things like that. And it angers, like especially little boys, it angers them that they can't fight for their mom or protect their mom. So they suppress all of those emotions, and it angers them that they are not allowed. Like old school, when grown folks was talking, you didn't talk. You didn't give feedback or any of that. You shut up and stay in a child's place is what we were told. And I taught my kids, stay in a child's place. But if you're not able to express yourself, you hold all of that in. And I think that's why my daughter, she when she started having kids, she said, Mom, I don't, they're allowed to have a voice. I let them speak. They don't have to shut up. And, I don't teach my kids that, that way. And I never said anything against the way she taught her children, outside of, you got to be careful how much space you give them, especially when they're children, because they still have to be taught. And, you know, that some things they just don't get involved with. And, but she had a different way of raising her children, and she wanted them to feel, like they could express themselves without judgment, without being yelled at, punished or whatever. She just wanted them to be, a lot of my daughter's age children, they were parents grew up wanting to be their friends. You couldn't be friends with me and my daughter. She was special. She was my baby. My boys, they were my sons, but we weren't best friends. We weren't friends. I was mama and they were the children, and they had to learn what not to do. So, but it's sad that children back in our day, Chris, they had to learn to be, quiet, and they had to learn how to suppress, their feelings. And as a result, they weren't able to express themselves. And so it plays, at some point it's got to play out. They want their lick back. They want to be heard. And some of it is coming out, where it's just let them get it out, or if they return from a breakdown, is, oh God, please let them, you know, or hopefully they'll end up dead or in jail because it was anger that they needed to get off their chest. But it's so sad that we hear about these things as pastors, and we try to talk people through times when they're experiencing a crisis. Sometimes we're able to do that, and sometimes we have to just recommend that they seek professional help. But it's important for us to notice, and the church needs to know that these are issues, these are mental health issues that people are faced with as a result sometimes of childhood traumas. And it's not as simple as, you need to be a man, or, you know, you need to leave that situation or whatever. But, sometimes it can be, you need to go a little bit further instead of just encouraging, motivating, and try to get people help, mental health help. Prayer is good, believing that God can deliver them from whatever they're experiencing. That works. It does. but they have to be willing to, and they have to know what to renounce in order for even deliverance to take place. You know, and if they don't know what it is, and the church is not skilled in identifying and discerning what is going on with them, you know, God has given medical science the knowledge to be able to identify and even name some of the things that people are going through, so that they can know how to pray, the church can know how to pray, in order that people get free and find hope, you know. And so we wanted to bring this to you. I'm not going to be on long. It seems like I don't have no help tonight.
Yeah, you do.
Pastor Chris, so you didn't say a bunch.
I'm waiting.
Jump in there. I was talking to my throat dry.
The doctor also said this too. She said, due to fear of abandonment, causing them to stay in an abusive relationship,
I heard
negative relationship, no matter what. Because in this condition of CPTSD, they're attracted to abusive people.
Yeah.
Due to stress and fear.
I heard that.
That they cause them to stay in some type of reckless relationship or anything that attracts them because this fear, because this stress.
Mm-hmm.
And they as they suffer with anxiety and mental conditions, which cause unexplained health problems, which you can due to this emotional thing,
abandonment
issue. Really, the thing dealing with their emotions and stuff like that, it do cause a sickness to come on the body.
Yeah.
Incurable diseases such as diabetes, what else? Migraines, and such other things that's real serious because they ain't taking the stuff serious about getting themselves on mental health with the CPTSD, as they call it. So
they talk about abandonment issues, like deciding to stay for long periods of times in unhealthy relationship because you just can't, you know, phantom leaving that person or not being with that person because maybe as a child, you know, you had abandonment issues, so it can cause you just want to stay in the relationships. That was sad to hear. Being addiction, you know, in addiction, it spoke about addiction, how you can stay in addiction. Immediately, as a substance abuse counselor, I'm immediately thought about some of my patients that, you know, struggle with not using, you know, illicit drugs because they feel like one was actually suicidal because she, you know, she stated like I'm lonely, I don't have anyone, I never had anyone, and when I use drugs, you know, that's when I'm happy, and you know, I'm sociable and things. So now, you know, because, you know, she is required to, you know, stay clean, she's like, I don't know that I can do that, you know, and I just rather just, you know, leave the program. And I don't want to be here because I just can't, you know, phantom life without it. It's been my whole life. So she's addicted to her addiction, and it's sad. You know, we have to really work hard as counselors to try to find something in them to help them to develop their own plan. And when they can't, we have to kind of try to, you know, kind of guide them and just keep working at it. But when they kind of shut down and say, hey, you know, this is my crutch, this, I'm not letting go of this, there's nothing you can do. You know, you basically have to recommend a higher level of care and kind of just close the book. But it never leaves your heart and your mind as to, I wonder whatever happened. You know, I wonder whatever happened to that person. I wonder whatever happened to her. You know, because I had to close the book. You know, and recommend a higher level of care.
Then due to this condition, emotional condition, it causes one to separate themselves from groups and people, because they have difficulty controlling their emotions. So they feel angry and distrust, have an issue of trusting people, so they distrust anything towards the world that's in the world, that's around them, that's in society, due to this condition.
Yeah.
And you see most of people that's in that condition is like that.
Yeah.
They call loners. keeping themselves far away from other people. You see most of them by themselves, talking to themselves, or eating by themselves, whatever that you see. But you always see this person nowhere around nobody, just by themselves, walking by themselves, driving by themselves, spending time with their own self, eating out in restaurants by themselves, and due to their emotional conditions that they have due to the CPTSD.
Exactly.
Emotions got to be controlled. See it like this: one got to learn to trust in God. God only one can control these emotions and get our emotions sustained. I know they got uh, medications out there that cause a person's emotion to be at a standstill, but you really look at that, that's not really good because we want to be in a passive mind, being up under some type of pharmaceutical drug that's going to control your emotions, that cause your emotions to settle down, where you have a end up having a passive mind and not really focus on where you at in reality. No
Right.
one, no one.
Don't. So a lot again, a lot of folk is just they're getting to that point in their life with so much stuff going on in the world today, so much depression and anxiety, and as she mentioned, stress can be a trigger to these emotional irregulations in your brain wave, and so oh my God, there's so many things you can do though to get help, right? Because we're living in a world where everything is just so stressful and there's so many triggers right now. If you have childhood traumas that has gone untreated or unnoticed, you may want to consider getting talking to your pastor. If you can't afford mental health services, you can go to churches and speak to pastors. Some are trained in these areas. Some of them just, they're capable of just listening, sometimes just venting and just being able to express, what's hurting you, can be a relief. Because a lot of times, again, remember, it could be that from a child you have suppressed and held all these things in, and now you might be feeling this, anxiety, this anxiousness, and to just get something off your chest, and as a result, you might feel like I'm gonna get my lick back on society. You see it all the time with the school killings. A lot of kids that have grown up in school and they've been bullied. Eventually they get to the point where I'm gonna take out everybody, and even not only just their victims, but ones they didn't intend to victimize. They just were a part of the outburst of what happened. And so we owe it to ourselves as parents and as, you know, uh, spiritual leaders to, if we see someone that comes inside of our businesses, our churches, at our events that we're having out public, if you see something suspicious, if you see something's wrong, um, try to see if there's a way that you can, you know, bring it to the attention of law enforcement, um, or your church leaders, to say, hey, listen, I'm really concerned about the behavior of this person, or the fact that they've withdrawn and isolated themselves. I haven't heard from so and so, she's not coming to church. Whatever it is, they were depressed the last time I saw them, they were acting really weird. Let's stop turning a blind eye. Sometimes you can reach out and be anonymous and report, certain behaviors or actions that you just deem to be really off, really off, or, you know, something that may need to be brought into the attention of somebody. Maybe it's a child that's going to school, that's coming to school, just really different, instead of ignoring it and not wanting to be involved, let someone know what's going on, you know. If you are a young mother struggling raising kids and suddenly it's just too much, and now you've gotten to the point where you're meditating, you're trying to bring it in, but that seemed to be a struggle for you. reach out and let someone know, let a mother know. Maybe it's a neighbor, an older woman that you can speak to about some of the things that you're experiencing, and to prevent you from maybe lashing out on one of your children. You know, um, it's so many different ways that we could, quote unquote, get our licks back that can end up really hurting someone or causing your life to change dramatically because of that outburst. This is something that is happening every day, all the time. We hear it in our families, you know, we hear it on the job, we hear about it, on TV. Everywhere we go, we see it happening. You can't even go to a concert now because somebody wants to get a lick back, and a lot of people are suffering as a result of it. The first thing we want to say when we see these tragedies happen is, oh my God, they're crazy. That was nuts. Who does that? That's evil. That's darkness. Yeah, I agree with a little bit all of that. But at the same time, no one knows what a person is going through. No one knows until, you know, there's an investigation, until there's assessments done, until, their parents are questioned, or other, people that knew them are questioned. And then we kind of get some insight as to why these tragedies occur at the hands of that individual that's being investigated. That's all well and good. It doesn't bring back loved ones or friends who have lost their lives as a result of somebody getting their leg back. It, if we can nib it in the bud before it happens, if we can change the behaviors in our household and realize, even, and I'm talking to our Christian brothers and sisters, more than anything, we love God. We say we love God. We say we want to change. We want to be different. But are we really making the changes that need to be made in order that our behavior um, demonstrates the ways of God? We need to follow the ways of God in our home. Should we be cussing and clowning and fighting, arguing, with one another? You know, and to top it off, our children in the house, whether it be, young children or teenage children, why should they have to be exposed to that type of behavior, knowing that what we're doing and how we're acting is going to affect their lives? We are adults, and we know that the behaviors are not right. If it's mental health, then that wife, that husband, um, that mom, that dad, grandparents, you owe it to yourself to get the help that they need, and or to report any violent or criminal behavior to the local police department to help save lives, right? And to maybe even get that person the help that they need. A lot of times, a lot of stuff that has happened, these tragedies that happen, that you will hear the parents said, I tried everything. I tried to get them the mental health that help that they need, and I wasn't able to do that. And now this is what has happened. Well, I say, go as far as leaving the community and going somewhere else if you can, to get the help that that child need, or that teenager need, or that adult need. Don't stop. Sound the trumpet. Go to the news media. Do what you have to do when you know that you have someone that has childhood traumas that is about to play out, and a lot of people are going to be affected by it. Go and do whatever, get out with a bullhorn, do whatever you have to do in an effort to bring the attention to get the attention that you need to get the help that you need. Some of you may have already done that. I don't know. I haven't seen that. I've heard mothers say, I tried to get them the help when they were babies, and I tried to get them help when they was teenagers. They were acting up, and nobody would help me. Okay, well, and then next thing you know, people are dead. I don't know. I just don't know what else we can do other than educating the public on these mental health issues that could eventually spill out into our communities, spill out into our homes, you know, um, in lives by way of suicide, or what you call it, murder, suicide, what you call it when you kill somebody, kill
Yeah,
yourself.
murder suicide.
Yeah, it's just things are not going to get better. I just believe that. I'm a Christian woman and I believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. And so I say, as a pastor, as a community leader, I say that we need to bring attention and awareness to what is happening, the real life stuff that's happening in our homes that has affected our young children, to the point where some of them are in their 40s and still have not matured to that age bracket because they are still living with childlike mindsets because there was something missing in the home or something didn't happen in the home from them to get the mental nourishment that they needed in order, um, that they be able to control their behaviors, if that makes sense.
It'll make a lot of sense. And still, one got to be willing to get some help
Yeah.
with a medical condition. We can't make excuses to keep walking around in the type of emotions that shaped us because the environment and the life that we lived in the household, how we came up, or living in society. That's just an excuse. We cannot build it. Yeah, they said it's incurable. They said
Yeah.
there's no help to it, but you do have a help to help you out, and it's God. And you got to be willing to want to be helped, that your emotions to be healed, because so much wounds inside emotion, so much with the emotions of the soul that experience in this life, it's got to be healed. It's got to be changed. And only God is the only one who can do that if you believe in God. Because books, a person, whatever a person say, diagnosis or whatever, or some type of counseling, the only true counseling you're going to truly get is God.
But even with that, with all due respect to our God, we are flesh. We are human. We're spirit and we're human. For the ones who have accepted God, their spirit, right? But we have a soul, Pastor Chris. We have souls, which I believe, is tied to our
Spiritual part of
carnal.
ourselves.
We have um if you kick a dog while they're down, eventually the dog is going to bite. If you're trying, I take myself, I love using me as an example. I was raised up as a single mom, and all I wanted was the white picket fence with the dog and the husband so I could lay up with my husband all the time and just be happy ever after. I wanted that I wanted the, I wanted that fairy tale life, and it didn't turn out that way. And because it didn't turn out that way, I became angry. I became angry, and that anger was tied into the fact that I was angry when I was a little girl because of the abuse, because of the trauma, because of the things I went through. So that anger as a teenage mother that had made a mistake and laid with the wrong boy and didn't get married or whatever, when I got angry, it wasn't angry that I just learned. It was the anger that I learned as an abused child. And so when I got angry, the angry and the fighting and all of that I learned as a child, it poured into my teenage life, and then that poured into my young adult life. I knew right from wrong, but I couldn't control the anger because I came up thinking that I was violated, I was mistreated, I was wrong, and that I felt like I had a reason to be angry. But I developed that as an adult. You don't think as a child anymore, and you have to bring it together. But I guess what I'm saying is sometimes, even as I was, I think, 16, 17 when I ran to the church. I didn't even understand, I didn't know who God was, but I ran there. I was angry, and I loved him with my whole heart. But that didn't stop me at some point in my life after I left the church. That didn't stop me from being angry. And as angry as I was when I was a little girl, it didn't stop me from having outbursts. Not until I decided and I learned that I started really listening and learning about God. And I wanted to change my life. It wasn't the fact that I just went to church. Some people just think they can go to church and God is going to wish it all away. Something is going to fall out the sky and they're going to be magically fixed. I think that going to church, it has not just like believing in God. I think you have to develop more so like a relationship with God.
Your relationship with God and deal with
and want to please God.
Yep, and deal with yourself.
Because if you don't want to please God
and follow God's lead of being healed.
Because I wanted to change myself when I went to church. I wanted to be in a good place when I went to church. But it was a difference, Chris.
Yeah, the healing is a process. You got to work with God. God's right there working with you. But you got to do the work with Him.
I think when you mentioned God, yep. But you know what? I think it's more than that. And this is my opinion. And I'm entitled to mine like you're entitled to yours. I went to church. I was in church. I thought I was doing everything right by getting up every Sunday morning. But it wasn't until I really decided I was going to follow God's ways that changed me. I wanted to please God instead of pleasing me, because I felt like, oh, woe is me. Woe is me, God. And so when I felt the love and I found the compassion of God, I stayed there because I felt that. But then when the world beat up on me, because I never stopped fornicating, when the world beat up on me, I was still, oh God, help me. I still wasn't getting what I needed from God because I didn't know what I needed from God. And what I needed was to do exactly what you're saying we need to do. I needed to change my ways. I needed to change my reaction. That wasn't a focal point when I went to God. It wasn't. It was comfort me, help me, protect me. But then when I said, I want to serve you, I want to learn how to be right, I want to change my mind, I don't want to feel this or be this no more, that's when change happened to me. So I think a lot of people are still going to church today. They're just going because they want that comfort, they want that safety, they want things from God. But then when they learn, like, okay, when they get to studying that word and they understand what God's expectations are of them, they don't stick around. A lot of people don't stick around. They don't want to put that kind of work in. They don't want to be a servant to Him. And so that going to God don't always help everybody because they go to God for a different reason.
The point is this, speaking about emotion, CPTSD, you got to work on your emotion. It helps with the mental stuff that you done went through in your life, the trauma as a childhood, adult. It's lying there in your emotions. You need to be healed. You got to make a choice to be healed and want to be healed and want to make that change with your emotion. And that's what we conclude with.
No, that's the bottom line.
Bottom line, conclusion. Get the help that you need.
Bottom line.
Make that change. Only you can make that change by willing to do it.
And I put this up for some people that might need, if you are in a relationship, domestic violence, and your intimate partners feeling like they need to get their lick back, right? Because of things they've been through, the world did them wrong, and everybody done traumatized them, and now you a victim and you stuck in the house and can't get out. Honey, listen, call 1-800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Call them 1-800-799-7233, National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can also Google that number too, Domestic Hotline. You can also call 998 if you're feeling suicidal. If you feel like, I'm done. I've experienced all this trauma as a child. It's done poured into my teenage, my adulthood, and now I'm just a whole wreck. I'm about to get my lick back and I'm out. Double homicide, whatever. I'm done. What they call it, suicide, homicide, kill somebody. No, none of that. Stop it. Call 988, the suicide hotline. Talk to somebody. It's not worth it. It's not. There's a place. There's peace, joy, and hope through the Holy Ghost from a Christian perspective. And I'm telling you, if you want to build a relationship that is healthy and that is productive, you might want to get on your knees, drop on your knees, and ask the Lord to come into your life right now. He will make it all right. If you want to change, if you want something different, start a relationship, build a relationship with him. And we can vouch for, once you build that relationship and you come a servant for Jesus Christ, you're going to want to make the right choices. You're going to want to make the right decisions. And another number, I got another one here. Let me see. I think it's up here. It is, let me find it, y'all, because I don't want y'all to go away without me getting these numbers up for you. 988, that's the new suicide hotline number. Chris, help me find my flag here. Here we go. I got this one. It's going to come scrolling across the bottom here in just a second here. I want you to call this one. Here it goes. Oh, did it disappear? There we go. 1-800-799-7233. National Domestic Violence Hotline, or you can text 88788. Again, that's 88788. Leave no trace if that's what you're doing, and stay safe. Suicide hotline is 988. The calls are in English and in Spanish. Call now. Stop and call now if this is you and you're experiencing someone's wrath because they're trying to get their lick back. You don't have to experience those things. You don't have to go through it. I hope y'all got something out of the show tonight. Thank you, Pastor Chris, for being in. We got one more weekend with Pastor Chris coming in. Then we're going to do something on health and wellness next month. It'll just be me, right? Let's Keep It Real with Chantel. God bless you. Chris, you want to say a little prayer to pray us out for the night?
Lord, we ask you to bless the people, Father, that tuned in, and bless their spirits, Father. They deal with the ones who have emotional problems, Father, with their emotions, Father, and dealing with CPTSD, to get some help, Father, to seek some spiritual help, Father, as well as mental help, Father, and physical help, Father, from the doctor, Father, to begin to deal with their issues, Lord. And we thank you for that, Lord. We give you the honor, we give you the glory. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight. God bless you and good night.